Today's episode of Running It Back is here. It's ready. After a short break, we are back. I'm back in the studio, and this week we have a good one for you. Just wrapped up recording it. It was a lot of fun. I think you're going to love it. Before we get to the episode, though, you can catch me doing live stand-up comedy May 26th. That is Thursday, 10 p.m. right here on the West Coast. So if you're in the area and you want to see me do live stand-up comedy, you let me know. You hit me up. Send me a message. I can get you in. I am at Flappers Comedy Club this week coming. It's a lot of fun. I'm doing more and more stand-up, so you can have a chance to come and see me. On the show today, True Crime is back. Andrew Ramirez, Brother Andrew, is back on the show. If you don't know him, he is the curator of the Murder Mecca Instagram handle, tackling all things true crime. We've done some episodes before, but we tackled the big one this week. We did Conversations with a Killer, the John Wayne Gacy tapes, a truly creepy documentary that we get into. We analyze, we talk about the history of it, and of course, we do the categories, our thoughts on the documentary itself, what it means, big picture, and how it affected us as reviewers. So, if you're new to the show, if you're new to Running It Back, go back and check out the archives with me and Andrew. We've done some in the past. Probably the most viewed episodes we've done have been true crime. So here's another one, and we're prepping for the summer. We have more planned. So Andrew Ramirez joins me on the show. A couple more episodes dropping this week on Running It Back as well with other guests. Should be fun. So check it out. See me do stand-up. And right now, Conversations with a Killer, the John Wayne Gacy tapes with me and Andrew Ramirez, Running It Back. Enjoy the show. All right, Running It Back, True Crime Edition is back. Andrew Ramirez joins me, the curator of the Murder Mecca Instagram site, back again, tackling more true crime. I'm here in the LA studio, Andrew Ramirez in Chicago, Illinois, prepping us for a summer full of true crime. Andrew, you're back. How are you?
Feels good to report from the Chicago bunker.
You're in the bunker, huh?
We're ready to go.
Ready to go. True crime. Tell me how the Murder Mecca site is going. What's the latest?
Latest from Mecca is, we're at cruising altitude, I would say. Nothing crazy, it's been a busy year, so I haven't had like a ton of time to update it and post to the story and engage with like the following like I usually do. But I've gotten a few good posts out there. They get like some crazy comments. The best thing about it is like just giving them something and then watching them like kind of like grapple with each other and like get into fights and argue. And I kind of never try and take a side, even though I'll always have an opinion, just because it's like fun to like watch them like do their thing. So got that going. And then as we'll find out later, I think I'm going to share some like pretty crazy messages I've got through the Murder Mecca inbox. And then other than that, nothing, just getting ready for summer.
You know, we always tackle true crime on here. We've done it before. We had like a little break since. We made all these plans. And now we got another remote one before we hit the summertime, talking a classic crime that I think everybody knows. And then as we get into it, you find out all these details of it that you didn't know existed. And it finds you even more compelled to the case. So this episode, we are tackling Conversations with a Killer, the John Wayne Gacy tapes. 3 episodes. It's up on Netflix right now. Let's start with this big picture question first. Are we ever going to have enough true crime documentaries? Are we just going to be a subject we're always compelled to? What makes true crime so compelling?
Yeah. Okay. There's never going to be a limit. There's never going to be like a cap on it. It's like officially a genre at this point. So true crime isn't going to go anywhere, just like the romance genre is going to go anywhere, like the action genre, like it's there to stay. So why does it persist through time? I feel like it's because everybody is afraid of death, or everybody, maybe not afraid's not the right word, but everybody's aware of it at a certain age, And then once people become aware of it, I think as a way to kind of quell their fear a little bit, they try and look at some of the most horrific ways that people have died to kind of like, I think like voyeurism their way into like a little bit of like subconscious relief that like they're not in that situation. So it's like addicting. It's like looking like it's like watching like a burning building or something like that. It's like fun to watch these really disturbing stories and then know like you can empathize with the characters and know what it feels like, maybe, based off of their stories. But at the end of the day, you're like, I'm safe, like I'm in my own little like space, and I just got to look at all that from like a distance. I think that's why people like it. It's like voyeurism, like any other like form of entertainment.
I think the distance the audience has from the crime, from the story, is really what makes it a form of entertainment, because we can watch it from the distance. We can take in all the scary factors. The horrificness of the crime has already happened, so we're not scared in that regard. Talk about just how true crime, as we consume it as entertainment, has evolved, because there's a million true crimes anytime that you can watch right now. But I remember true crime, the way we consumed it when I was a kid, was there were shows like Unsolved Mysteries and would come on once a week, and it would be a reenactment. It would be very much a show, and it was entertainment, and then that was about it. And then there was books. You would read books, but there was no documentaries of a crime being spoke about from the family members, a crime being spoke about from the detectives. It was just sort of like they would make little TV shows out of the story, and then you would watch it for 30 minutes, and then that would be about it.
Right. Hey, I'm with you. If there's like, people are like, oh, the good old days of rock and roll or whatever, like with true crime, like I'm a-okay with not going back to those good old days of like 90s dramatizations. Those are so
Yes.
bad. That smooth camera and then like the fuzzy like crime reenactment.
Yeah.
And then it says like reenactment. It's like, of course, is it a reenactment? Like no one who would possibly think this is the real thing.
Yeah, very
They
much
were
so.
dumb. They were so dumb. I think that was more of just like a product of the times, like music videos were kind of like that. Like everything was kind of filmed in that like goofy, fuzzy, like almost like infomercial way.
Mm.
Um, but I'll say like the cool thing about true crime now is always something I found really engaging about true crime was like the urban legend quality of it all. Like as we'll get into it with Gacy, but everyone has that story where they're like, my uncle's friend almost got murdered by so and so. You hear that 100 times, and it's like, you're like, there's no possible way that all of these people are connected to this serial killer, but it's fun to listen to. And like I feel like true crime is like, podcasts are very true crime, and they have like mini series and stuff like that. Like it's kind of like geared its way towards that style of like urban legend, like two people just kind of like recollecting facts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why true crime's having like a little golden age right now, is like this is always the best way to do it, is like any horror movie, like you're not supposed to show the monster just lives in your head and you imagine it, and then there's nothing scarier than the imagined monster. That's what a true crime conversation is you're kind of picturing it in your head as opposed to having it displayed before you in a 90s forensic files episode. I think that's why true crime's doing really well now, is the conversation opens up your imagination, and true crime is really engaging for that.
Couple thoughts I had with the evolving of true crime is the aspect of storytelling. Is we went from, like you said, dramatization to an actual documentary, an actual hearing the voices of the people involved. And then to that point, who does the true crime story idealize? Because it's so easy to make the main character of these true crime documentaries the killer, the perpetrator. And I think filmmakers and documentarians are aware that we don't want to glorify the criminal, and thus they make the victims or the victims' families or the detectives involved the storyteller, the hero of the story in some sense. So I think it's evolved in the sense that like the people who were involved, not the killer, not the bad guy, has to be the main character, has to be the hero in some sense. Although we know it's not a happy ending, we know they're not going to be heroic in that sense, but the storytelling of it has to be, I would say, somehow honoring the victim in some sense. I think the documentarians are well aware of that. And it's one thing when we get into the Gacy tapes, I think that they attempt to do, and ultimately, I think they do pull it off. Do you feel like they're main characters in these documentaries like I do when it's being told?
I feel like you nailed it. There was like a crossroads for true crime where I feel like it hit the point where nobody really knew what we were doing with it. In the late 90s and early 2000s, you had these 60 minutes, like inside the criminal mind segments where they would interview Richard Ramirez, or they would interview another prolific serial killer. You
Charles
name it,
Manson would be another one. Yeah,
they
we
probably
would.
popped him on an interview, and you would get to listen to their ramblings, and it was really spooky. But I think at the end of the day, people began to realize we're giving all of our attention to these people who haven't really done anything other than an insane act of violence.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost morally reprehensible to pay this much attention to them. So I think collectively, people started to shift the focus a little bit away from them and the fan mail, and and more towards the victims, and a sense of, like you said, storytelling. Like, you can't just have the villain, you need to develop the side characters, and you need to develop the protagonist. And now true crime is told very much more in a more chess pieces format, as opposed to just focusing on this close following of this killer. And it's gotten a lot better as a result, I think. Also, the other thing is, now to, I guess, make it work for audiences who might be struggling with the question of, why do I like this? Now they do a good job of providing advocacy. A lot of true crime
Mm-hmm.
documentaries end with the missing person's phone number, where it'll say, if you have any information on a case, call this number. So it kind of makes it seem like you can still actively help. And maybe true crime now serves a dual function of entertaining, but also letting people know the story in case they might know something that could ultimately help the case.
I think a couple things too that where true crime derived from was books and movies. You know, you would have a book about the crime, and then they would make a movie about the crime, and then us, the public, then we would start researching the actual story of it. You know, a lot of times the movie would be our intro into the actual crime of what happened. Like to the casual person, like Zodiac or something like that. You're like, wait a second, what happened? And then you would go research it, or you would watch something like Silence of the Lambs, and you'd be like, where was that derived from? And then you would get sort of the cases involved that they made to make that story, or where that kind of book came from, where the truth of it came from. And then we would research it. Whereas now it's reversed. We get the crime first. We get all the documentaries of it, and then sometimes a movie gets made of it. A couple aspects I want to see what you think about this that goes into the true crime or the dramatic nature of it is, number one, they did this documentary, John Wayne Gacy tapes, in 3 episodes. We did one earlier in the year, The Night Stalker, which was 6 episodes. And I think we were in agreement that it was long. At some point, it got long. Like, how many times can we go over these sort of grounds? 3 episodes, I think they do really well with this one. We have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and they wrap it up. And I thought it fit perfectly with the episode length. And then secondly, location. Does the location matter in the dramaticness or just the scariness of a crime? Because the location is very much a good setting in this one that creeped me out. What do you think about length and location in this doc as it pertains to this documentary?
I think they made a real good decision by shortening it down to however many episodes they did. What was it? 3 episodes? Four
Three
episodes,
episodes
maybe?
for this
Okay.
one.
It's You can just, at a certain point, you can just cut to the chase. There's only so many setups you can have for this. Ultimately, everybody knows what this is about. Very few people have probably went into this documentary having no idea who John Wayne Gacy is. So I feel like this documentary's job is more to give you new information that you maybe didn't know as much about, as opposed to laying out the basic Gacy facts, you know? And then calling back to what you said earlier, like about watching a movie like Silence of the Lambs, and then obviously knowing that's not a true movie, it's fiction, but also wondering what serial killer inspired this. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I feel like it was ripe for urban legend back then, because it just dawned on me you would have to watch the movie. I think that movie came out in 1991. You watch that movie and couldn't go home and Google it or anything. You couldn't go home and read 10 interviews that the writer gave about their inspiration. You know, you just had to let it distill in your head. Maybe that was about this one. Maybe that was about that one. Maybe you went to the library and found a book on serial killers, but there was no direct channel to no inspiration or anything. So as a result, you would just talk about it with your friends, and I feel like do some serious speculating, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of where a lot of true crime fun came from, that maybe doesn't exist anymore, because now you just get the answer. But I think talking about movies, especially like the really disturbing ones, not even Silence of the Lambs, even like a movie like Casino, you know, where they're about mobsters who aren't real, but you know that they have to be based off of some type of real character. You
Yeah.
know, you just kind of bullshit with your friends and try and guess who it could be. And that's a whole different aspect of true crime movie watching that we really don't do as much anymore, you know? Which is why probably we're getting back to more conversation based discussions around true crime, because that's part of the fun, is just speculating, you know?
Yeah, it's so true. How many times would it be where you watch the TV show or you watch the movie and then all of a sudden that becomes canon? That was the truth. That's all we knew. And then we just went from there. And then just take any movie. You would see some movie and you would think something like The Mighty Ducks was a true story. You're like, well, I saw it in
Right.
a movie. And then that's that. There was no looking it up. The urban legend of it, for good or bad, is lost a little bit because we can go find facts right away. It doesn't become like, well, I heard this or I heard that or I thought the movie did this, and then that the legend grows. We go look it up. We go double check it right away, and we can know if such and such was a character, an actual character in the movie, or if the timeline was right or not. So the urban legend of it is interesting that we've lost it or we've just evolved it in a different way now because there's so much information to look up. One of the things I thought they did well in this one with the 3 episodes is we complained about it in the Night Stalker was the timeline. That it would, a lot of documentaries, sports included, does this too a lot, is they'll go along the timeline. They did this in The Last Dance. We would get along with the Chicago Bulls 1994, and then it would jump back to 1984, Jordan in college. This one does it a little bit, but I thought it kept you locked in to the investigation, to the court timeline as well. And I had a lot of appreciations for that.
Yeah, they do a good. I really like the timeline, because they do they got the big titles where it tells you day one of the Robert Peast investigation. Is that it? Peast or Priest? Peast,
Peast, I
maybe.
believe, is how it's pronounced. Yeah, the main crux of the start of the investigation in
So that's
Illinois.
like the murder that they hyper focus on, and it takes you through that investigation and really close follows the detectives. One thing that stood out to me, if we're comparing this to the Night Stalker one, is that this, maybe almost for better, this documentary didn't have a standout cop. You know, in
Oh,
my
interesting. You
in
didn't
my
feel that way. Okay.
opinion, in my opinion, all of these cops were good, but it didn't have the Gil Carrillo of the Night Stalker necessarily. So I wasn't really tying my narrative focus to a specific detective story like Gil's story from Night Stalker. It was more kind of the whole cop unit working as a team. I think there were 3 cops trailing Gacy when they were following him around. And I liked following it from each their individual recollection of following Gacy, as opposed to one cop's really dominant, like entertaining storyline.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty good. Um, other than that, I was pretty happy with what was going on initially. With Gacy's like you got the Robert Peast investigation, and then you just have Gacy information, just his storyline from day one leading up to what gets you to Robert Peast.
Hmm.
Gross guy, unattractive, childhood issues, all of that you kind of can surmise, even if you don't know anything about him. You can't imagine he had an amazing childhood. So I like that they zip through that pretty quickly and then ultimately get to the most interesting part of any serial killer's life, which is, I would say, the 10 to 15 years leading up to them starting to kill people,
Hmm.
And I thought this documentary did a good job of focusing on that and not spending too much time on his childhood, which I feel like is always the same. Any biography you read, like the childhood pages are all the same. You could skip those just to get to the teenage years and stuff. So I'm glad that this documentary is kind of aware of that and kicks you through pretty quickly.
Good point in the character's observation, where as the Night Stalker, we were rooting for Gil Carrillo, the detective. This one, it took me a little bit to try and figure out who I'm rooting for. If we're to make main characters, which we will as we get to the categories later, the defense attorney was probably the most compelling of all the characters. The guy, he was the most boisterous, he was the most animated. So I ended up in some way rooting for him in the sense that I wanted him to just express himself the most. And then secondly, as far as characters, we talked about the location being a character. What I might throw in there as a compelling aspect was just the era of the 1970s. And as all these documentaries just really struck a gold mine with footage of the day, the news footage, the newspaper clippings, the 70s era, as I wrote down in some of my notes, was a main character in this, just being a scary time. It's not that far removed time wise, and yet it feels like a million years away as a time when, like, holy shit, anything could happen in this era. You were on your own in this era. I have a lot of thoughts on that as we get to the categories as well.
Oh my
So,
God. Yeah. Just imagine a time before cell phones when
yeah.
I mean, just to get ahead to it, the kid gets kidnapped because he leaves the grocery store just to talk to Gacy in the parking lot. And
Hmm.
then that's the last time anybody sees him. So maybe he didn't get kidnapped. Maybe Gacy just said, pop in my van and we'll go head over to the site and I'll show you the job or whatever. But that's the last time that anybody saw him. And the mom came over and the attendant just said, he's in the parking lot. And the mom says no. And she's like, well, I guess he's not here anymore. If he comes back, tell him to give me a call and I'll come pick him up.
Right.
That's all you had. You couldn't
That's all.
text. You
Yeah.
couldn't do anything other than that. You couldn't send a million phone calls, leave a voicemail. You couldn't track the phone. That's it. What a different time than now. What a completely
Hmm.
unrecognizable time from a communication perspective.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine that. My whole life has been cell phone.
In the era of cell phones, Ring video doorbells, just the lack of surveillance or ability to track something is super scary if you think about it. So it just seems like this was, when we get into the categories, this was a golden age of people disappearing, and the notion of the concept of a runaway.
Yeah.
Kids would run away in those days. When we get into the acceptance of someone being gay in the era, that had a big aspect where kids ran away and then that was it. They were gone. And then people like the pariahs were feeding off of that. And it just made for a scary, scary era. Factor in the grainy 70s footage. And you just think, like, oh my God, this was happening regularly all the time in the 70s. I thought that was really effective. Next sort of line of topic is this documentary was produced by Joe Bellinger. I did a little research on him. He also did the Ted Bundy tapes, which is on Netflix right now, Confronting a Serial Killer, Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel, which we covered a few months back. And then a big gap, he also did the documentary Metallica, The Monster Lives in 2014. And then the most surprising project on his resume, Oprah's Masterclass, 2011 to 2013. So quite the range before he found his true crime calling. Really effective. I really liked how he did it here. Before we get into the categories, Mount Rushmore of serial killers. Now, you can take this any way you want. Just dramatic story, compelling criminal, setting. Who do you have on your Mount Rushmore of serial killers? I have my four. I want to see if you agree with them or not. I have the Zodiac Killer. I have the Night Stalker, Jack the Ripper, and Charles Manson. Those are my four. Scariness, mystery, nickname. I got those as my four. Agree, disagree, or would you add one in?
Okay. The serial killers that you listed are super popular. No one would disagree that those are household names. Let me tell you, okay, this is the issue that I think you're going to run into. Mount Rushmore is very much a facial based monument. It's a bust of the people. So the Zodiac was never caught. No one knows who the Zodiac is. So what would the symbolism of him be? That would be hard, right? And then Jack the Ripper's the same. They never caught Jack the Ripper. So what would you put? You would just have to put a nondescript English person, or maybe like a shadow.
Oh,
maybe
one of those blank faces.
You could carve it in a part of the mountain that never gets any sun,
Yeah.
and then the face could always be in shadow and the nose could just be coming out a little bit. But that's weird, because when I thought about this, I immediately thought of serial killers whose faces like I could picture on a mountain, So mine would be, Charles Manson is a good one. I wasn't even going to do Charles Manson. I was going to do Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy's up there. Jeffrey Dahmer. We got to get Gacy in there. Gacy.
Yeah, Gacy that high up. Okay. As far as face goes, it's interesting you went just with facial recognizability. I just went like the top four killers or stories, and you went with I got to make an actual bust of them. Where would that mountain be if we made a serial killer mountain? It would have to be somewhere far, far remote, just for the sake of keep it out of the public eye.
Put it in Portland or something like that. Boy, it would do well.
Put it in the Appalachians.
Wait, okay, so there's four, right? It's Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy. And then my fourth one, the fourth one is hard. Richard Ramirez isn't a bad one, but I want to get a little diversity in there. I want to get like a woman serial killer. What about here's a wacky one. What about Eileen Wuornos?
Yeah, I was going to say that's the one that comes to mind for me.
Prostitute serial. Yeah, I would pop her in there. That way we get a woman in there. And then let them know, that it's across the board.
It would be really weird if we put for her Charlize Theron's face up there since she played her in the movie.
Oh man,
we just put a little more aesthetically appealing face, and then she can be upset about it. Of course.
Did she? Oh yeah, she won an award for Monster.
Kind of.
That was the movie.
I believe so. Yeah. Kind of like we have the Hollywood Walk of Fame. We could have the Mount Rushmore of actors who played horrendous people in movies. Before we get to the categories, new segment to the show. This episode, we are introducing Murder Mail that has been sent to your account that you found interesting, compelling, that we're going to tackle this time around. So what do you got? Who has sent in some crazy shit to your account?
Okay, let's do it. Murder Mail. I wanted to pick a few that I just thought were really interesting and cool. All right, so here we go. This one is good. This one, I call this one Mother Trucker. Okay.
Another good scary setting, the interstate.
So good. That's one of my like favorite genres is like road trip scary movies. I call this one Mother Trucker. I used to deliver hotshot freight across the Great Plains, Minnesota area. One night around 2 a.m., I was hauling across North Dakota trying to reach Montana by morning. I was delivering a particularly valuable tractor part that a farm desperately needed for the following day. I began to notice some highway hypnosis sneaking up on me, but it didn't really bother me because I'd been through it hundreds of times before. Anyone who has driven across North Dakota knows that it is incredibly flat, like really, really flat. There also tends to be very straight and long roads. It's somewhat easy to see things on the road that are far away, even at night. I noticed something long on the road, spanning my entire lane, approximately half a mile in front of me. I slowed down a little and prepared to move into the opposite lane, thinking it was some retread off a blown off tire. As I got closer, I noticed it wasn't a tire. I noticed it was two people laying head to toe across the entire lane. I swerved into the other lane, successfully avoiding them, and came up to an almost complete stop. But they didn't move, not an inch. I was just about to back up and check on them when I remembered a story that an old graybeard colleague of mine told me. He told me that in certain remote areas, people would lie down in the middle of the road and wait for a car or truck to stop and see what's going on. At that point, the road layers, along with whoever else is hiding in the nearby bushes, will beat the shit out of the driver and steal his vehicle, leaving him in the middle of nowhere. I decided not to back up, and when the two people in the road saw me put my truck back in gear and drive away, they both got up and walked towards the shoulder. I called the police and explained what happened, but we were so far away from civilization that I doubt anything came of it. Thanks to that old graybeard, I got to keep my truck, my job, and my teeth. At least that's what I told myself.
Mm,
Okay, isn't that crazy? What do you
creepy,
think?
creepy.
That's like, have you ever had a story like that where you're like driving and you just, like you don't know if it meant anything or not? I guess in this story, it's pretty clear that they were going to rip him off because he sees them both get up and walk away, you
Right,
know.
right.
But
The
if they had stayed
highway.
laid down, if they had stayed laying down and he just drove away, you would always wonder, like, should I have actually helped those people, or were they really gonna fucking, try and rip me off and steal my
Right.
car? Have you ever like, rejected somebody's offer like on the road to give them a ride or something, and then kind of wonder like, was that the real thing, or should I have helped them out, or like what was gonna happen there?
Also, with the highway being scary, we talked about the era of runaways being something from the old days. The era of the hitchhiker has gone away too. I think you
Right.
could hitchhike back in the day, and then seeing people on the road is pretty scary. What a good deal for the people in the bushes, because if the car stops and then they rob them, great. If the car runs over their friends and stops, hey, nothing happened to that guy in the bushes either.
Right.
He wins both directions with it too. Highway. You know what I thought
No
is a
risk
good
for the
no
bushes
risk.
person. No
You know
risk at
what's
all.
uh what's a good highway scary movie is a movie called Breakdown, where Kurt Russell and his wife break down in the highway and some locals
Oh.
essentially kind of mess up their car, and then they kidnap his wife and he has to chase them, and the highway is the setting. Highway is scary. I'm with you. The highway might be the last remnants of the Wild West.
You've done a lot of drives. You've
I have.
crisscrossed all over the country. Have you had any crazy experiences on the road where you run into some weird people or think you see something in the road or anything like that?
One comes to mind where you and I took a Greyhound bus all the way to Los
Yes.
Angeles. And not only did we had to contest with the road in the long hours, we had to contest with the inhabitants of that bus.
That
It
was
was
crazy.
it was potentially the worst decision we ever made. Luckily we made it. But I remember we didn't even get to sit next to each other for the first leg of the bus ride, and I think I sat next to a girl who was seriously coming down from some drugs or something. She was fidgety, she was kind of looking around all the time, she was squirming a lot. And then I remember there was a guy who was wearing a hard hat the whole time
My
on the
God.
Greyhound bus. I remember the bathroom door got locked, and that was a crisis
Yes.
on the bus for a while. So that one comes to mind, that we might have dodged a bullet on that
Oh,
Greyhound bus ride
that
for
that
about
was
12
the
and a half hours,
that was a
maybe more.
terrible idea.
Terrible
We thought we
idea.
thought we were being real clever because we figured, one, we don't have to drive ourselves. Someone will drive us to LA. So it's like we have a chauffeur basically. And then two, we were like it's got Wi-Fi. Like the bus is gonna have
Right.
Wi-Fi.
The
So we'll
promise
just be
of Wi-Fi did
we'll,
not
we'll
come
be
through on that
watching
bus.
movies the whole way up. We won't
Yeah.
even know. We'll just be watching three movies and then, hey, you're in LA. And then as soon as we get on the bus, the Wi-Fi doesn't work at all. It didn't dawn on me. The bus goes 65 miles an hour on the expressway or the highway. So it
Top speed.
actually takes what, 20 hours to get there? Some
It
insane number,
probably took
18
us
hours.
16. Yeah.
Oh my
It was a
God. Like if
lot.
you go 100 miles in a Honda Civic, you get there in like 11 hours. But if you're going
Right.
65 miles in the murder bus, then you're going to get there so late. Do you remember? I remember when that person got stuck in the, or okay,
The
The
bathroom
setup,
door just locked on
yeah.
itself. Nobody was in there, but they thought someone
But he
was.
thought somebody, like someone said, like, oh no, someone died in the bathroom.
Yeah, we thought someone
And I
died.
was like, oh my God, if someone's dead in the bathroom, they're gonna have to pull the bus over because it's like a corpse now. And then
Yeah,
this is gonna delay us like a full day or something like that.
right.
It was bad. I would never ever recommend taking the Greyhound if
Not
you're
a good
just trying.
idea.
No, there, other than if you want to have like an experience of like sadness and poverty, then you should do it. But
Yeah, it
it was
was
not good. It was
it
not
was pretty
convenient.
rough.
It wasn't even cheaper.
I thought it was pretty cheap, but
Oh my
I don't
God.
it was cheaper than a flight, but
I guess that's true.
I think we had the threat of the bathroom, there was someone died in there or somebody was using drugs in there. Was the other fear
Yeah.
of it. And then and it started off okay because we drove a few hours and then we stopped at McDonald's. So we got
Oh my
remember we got
God.
McDonald's, but that was about the end of it. Who knew the romance of a Greyhound bus ride would not be realized?
Dude, when the Wi-Fi didn't work, that's when I knew that that whole journey was going to be a nightmare
We were in
because
trouble. Remember, we
no
got off early
Wi-Fi.
too. Like we got into the LA area and we're like, let's just jump off at the next stop and Uber from there,
Oh,
the
I
30
do remember
mile.
that. Yeah,
We
we got
bailed.
off at like Ventura or something like that.
We bailed. We
Oh
just like, well, we'll
man.
just Uber it from here. It's fucking fine.
Yeah,
Good
that
luck,
was, I
murder
remember that.
bus.
That was good.
Yeah.
Never again. Good experience.
Never again.
All right.
Well, continuing on the categories for the John Wayne Gacy tapes. First category, most compelling moment of the documentary. Nominees are the digging up of the Gacy house, Steve Nemers, the Gacy survivor, describing his encounter, and third nominee, the 70s in general, or write in your own nominee for most compelling moment of the documentary. I think the digging up of the Gacy house is my winner. It's so eerie. The footage is there. The detectives are describing what's happening. But those were my most compelling moments of the documentary. What do you think? Or do you want to add in your own?
All right. I'm gonna hop onto your train and say the middle one was the most compelling moment, which was the survivor telling their spooky night with Gacy story.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was so good. And it's a story where, since the person's telling you the story, obviously they're not dead, right? But even though the person's telling you the story, you still, because it's such a good story, you still feel like he's about to get murdered. So it like, I thought that story was so spooky. The setup was really good. And it also just makes you wonder what was like what's even going on in Gacy's mind to do all of the things that he does to people that he's actually killed, but then for some reason let this kid off the hook,
Mm-hmm.
and like the whole part of like, I was just testing you, you know, sitting on the side of his bed,
Yeah.
touching his thigh like at 3 a.m. with a hunting knife. Um, Insane. I could not believe that this kid went through that and didn't like run out of the house screaming or anything.
Yeah.
The kid, let's give it up. Let's throw it out there to kids in the 70s, just a different breed of kid, right? Like almost scared to be rude to John Wayne Gacy, and like
Mm-hmm.
politely just got dressed and sat on the bed until 6:30 a.m. and then still got into a car and drove an hour and a half with Gacy to
With
like
him.
whatever, Great Falls, Iowa or something. So
Completely scary of a retelling
insane.
of it. He's physically distraught retelling it, 50 years later. He's squirming. He's at the edge of tears as an adult retelling it. Just the retelling of him getting freaked out with when Gacy puts his hand on his thigh and then Gacy goes back to bed. He's like, I just sat at the edge of the bed till 6:30 in the morning, wide awake.
Right.
Oh, you can just imagine being scared to death in a house that you don't know and just like, I'm just going to sit here with my eyes open so nothing happens. And then when it's time to go, I'm going to knock on his door and say like, I'm ready to go. And then you have to sit in the car. That was very compelling.
I mean, again, imagine if you just had a cell phone, you would be like, I got to get out of here. I'm going to
Yeah.
call an Uber, or I'm going to call my friend and say, can you get me out of here? Call your parents even. But back then, like, you're just on an island with Gacy. So also, why does that even happen? He isn't he with more people initially, and
Yeah.
then they just leave, and
I
then he
believe the
doesn't
story
want to.
was, yeah, Gacy invited some of him and his friends over there. They were playing pool. They were having, they were drinking, And then the friend said, we want to go to a party. And he said, no, I don't want to go because you've been drinking. And they said, well, just stay the night here. And then John Wayne Gacy will drive you back in the morning. And he agreed to it. And that's how he got stuck there, which is like nowadays, I don't think anybody would agree to that, but maybe it was a different era.
It just seems like I definitely wouldn't agree to it the moment he held a gun to my head and say, take off your pants and
Right.
perform a sex act. Like that's as soon I would leave at that moment, you know?
Yeah. I think it was cold. I think it was winter and I think it was cold and he couldn't
Oh my
just
God. Like
leave.
couldn't you I guess it was like an hour and a half away from anybody that he knew.
It was
It's just crazy to
completely
me. It's
scary.
like, you know what else it is too? Is that in my mind, the crossroads in the story is like, okay, I can either leave this house with these kids who are kind of drunk and risk, drunk driving, or I could stay at this house with this creepy dude who's definitely going to make a pass on me as soon as I'm alone with him. Like in my mind, of course, you go with the kids who are a little drunk. It seems like the lesser of two dangers. However, when you think about it, put yourself in the shoes of a kid in 1970. He hasn't seen all of the movies that we've seen about this exact scenario,
A lot more trusting in those days.
So people don't have the media insight of like, don't hang out with this creep who got you drunk, in his basement, He hasn't seen the million horror movies that have come out since then about that type of character. So they are more gullible in a sad way, which makes that era ripe for serial killing, taking advantage of people.
Next category, scariest era, how the era plays a part in the documentary. The 1970s, I have in my notes for it being the scariest era. No cell phones, which we talked about. And in large in part, really no phones. You just had landlines in people's houses. That was about it. The concept of runaways was pretty scary. The fact that kids ran away, they talk about it in the documentary. The concept of someone being gay in those days was shunned, so families would probably not accept a young kid who was gay, so they just ran away. And it was a concept, like you had runaways in those days. And then also the question of if this crime could happen in modern days. Obviously not, because of cell phones. It makes it more scary, the fact that it was just so wide open of an era. What did you think about the 70s being the scariest era for crime?
I think the 70s are like the golden era for true crime. There's no doubt. It's like right before the technological tip happened. Well, not right before, but in an era where nobody knew what was happening yet.
Yeah, a
I
lot of
think
drug use. They touch on drug use as well. Scary time.
people like Jack the Ripper was killing people in like the 1800s, so like people in the 70s knew about Jack the Ripper, but that was right before true crime even became a genre. It's not like John Wayne Gacy was killing young boys when there were true crime novels all over the bookshelves. This was right before true crime turned into the obsessive compulsive like genre that it is today, So that gives Gacy a dual advantage. The first advantage is the technological advantage of no cell phones or any way of getting help or tracking people other than word of mouth. And then the second advantage is that nobody's aware of the creep that John Wayne Gacy is.
Yeah.
Nobody's read true crime stories cover to cover, So it's really a perfect time for that. And then the other part is that it still is very much like culturally a father knows best era, where you can just pull up and just make demands and people will just follow your demands if you're a guy who's wearing a collared shirt.
Yeah.
One thing, Ted Bundy would always just roll in with a fake badge and then just be like in plain clothes with a badge, and that was all he had to do to get people to jump into his car that wasn't even a police car. It's an era before Jackass and before Borat, where if somebody says they're the person they are, like you just believe them if they're a normal person,
I think we just had a trusting of authority, and Gacy had fake badges and would impersonate a policeman as well. We just trusted Policemen, firemen, teachers, and even like it's reflected in like our movies. 50s and 60s was the war hero, the sheriff. And then as we see in the 70s, we had a lot of movies of the corrupt cop. Like it came around, but we weren't there yet at the time. And then young kid will trust authority. It was scary, scary era, 1970s. I hate it. I hate the 70s.
Okay, there was like the renegade cop character,
Right. We had the
kind of
Charles
the
Bronson, the vigilante
exactly,
cop. We had Dirty
exactly,
Harry.
kind of working for the system still. But even though they're renegades, they're still good guys at the end of the day.
Hmm.
You still don't have the Alonzo Training Day character where it's like
Right,
a
right.
piece of shit. Um, who, yeah, it's like that. All of the authority characters are still solidly good people who, even though they have shortcomings and like character flaws, at the end of the day, they still want to do the right thing. And then, and then you have a whole era of serial killing and people being taken advantage of for that exact reason. And now it's like the opposite. You don't trust people in
Right.
authority. It's almost like, okay, like say they're asking who wants to coach like the JV girls volleyball team, and then a guy raises his hand. Everyone now is like, "What's your fucking problem, bro? Why do you want to do that? What's your problem?"
Who
Um,
wants to take the
even
girls on a weekend bus ride to a competition? First hand that goes up, you're out.
right,
You're
go
not taking
go
them.
right to jail. Go right to jail, my friend. That was a trick. But what if it actually is a good person who wants to coach the team? Like, it's still possible that that's a good person, but everybody's initial reaction is flipped now. Everybody assumes they're a fucking creep until proven otherwise. Whereas back in Gacy's time, you assumed he was a good guy.
Hmm.
Different time. Sad.
Different
It's
time.
honestly sad. What a
Next
fucked up.
category, special category for this one. This one's called Killer Clowns. We all know John Wayne Gacy's Pogo the Clown character he dressed up as. So, my question in this category is what is it about the clown that's so menacing? I got three thoughts. Number one, the costume. You're wearing an adult is wearing a big costume, so they're not
Yes.
moving around like a human. It's bright. They're outwardly happy, which for some reason, if someone's outwardly happy, that becomes suspect. And then the last detail would be the clown specifically targets children. A clown entertains children, they don't entertain adults. That makes it inherently creepy as well. So, killer clowns. Did this kill the clown in general as far as being a child, something that entertains children, or is the clown just dialed into our DNA as being scary?
I think I think John Wayne Gacy definitely made the clown a symbol of murder and torture and sadism. But I think the clown was scary before that. I think that John Wayne Gacy enjoyed being the clown because that let him take on this like role of, again, like a person who's supposed to be good. But at the same time, I think people were always a little bit skeptical of clowns. And then here's why I think that: because the clown, the whole costume that the clown wears is almost like a medieval jester costume. So it's never been updated through time. The clown costume is like a funny costume that people wore in the 1300s. But all of society advanced and all of fashions changed. But for some reason, when people dress up as a clown, at least in Gacy's case, he would kind of put on that like medieval jester suit or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's many ways to like, I think clowns get a little bit of a bad rap. There's ways to be a little bit more like appealing as a clown. And some clowns can put on like more of the failed salesman suit, with like the
Mm-hmm.
baggy pants and like a big jacket, like a big suit, blazer jacket. And that doesn't have like the same menacing quality as Gacy in the fucking single fucking overall with like the satiny like bells on his collar or whatever. Have you ever read about the way he applied his makeup? It's
No.
he never put it on right. So clowns are supposed to give themselves soft edges with their makeup. So you'll notice a lot of clowns kind of do like the oval, like almost 5 o'clock shadow around their mouth or whatever. They're not supposed to give themselves sharp points. And Gacy would always give himself like a really sharp smile point, which made him look a little more menacing too.
Hmm.
And you're not supposed to do that as a clown. So he even like broke the rules of clown makeup when he would dress up. I think clowns were always creepy. Think of a kid's perspective. Clowns are creepy to kids just like the Easter Bunny is creepy to kids.
Yeah,
And
I was thinking
fucking
about
Santa
that too.
Claus makes them
Kid who
cry, you
cries on
know?
Santa Claus's lap. Yeah.
So clowns are just scary to kids because every adult in a big fake costume is scary to kids. But clowns are creepy because they don't really have a seasonal purpose. They just show up for a birthday or something. So
Hmm.
there's no way to really rationalize a clown. So I think that's why they get a bad rap. I don't know.
I agree. Always creepy. You always have that side eye with a clown. Ronald McDonald, Bozo the Clown.
Oh
Like,
God.
you know there's a human in there. It's not that great a costume. You know it's a human. And then you ask, like, why are you dressed like that? Why would anybody choose to dress like that?
Oh yeah. The makeup is so like pasty too. It's not like a
Right.
mask. Like if
It's
it's more
not.
fun, like Chuck E. Cheese is like a clown essentially, but they have a mascot's helmet on. So it's
It's a
more
big
fun.
rat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a intriguing costume, but with a clown, it's just clearly a guy with paint on their face. It's
Hmm.
gross.
It's
It's really
creepy. Yeah, it's
gross.
gross.
Yeah.
Not
I
even
know
creepy.
they're
It's
no,
gross.
and then clowns are inherently sad too. Everyone knows that a clown is actually like got a painted smile on their face. It's not a real
Yeah.
smile. It's
The
depressing.
sad clown. The Pagliacci opera of the
Very
sad,
sad.
broken clown. Yeah, I hate clowns. I hate the 70s and I hate clowns. Being a clown in the 70s was just, that was red flag, which brings us to the next category, red flag tipping point.
Hmm.
If you were any of these people in the documentary or any of one of Gacy's particular victims, where would it be? What would be the red flag? What would be the tipping point? Would you would run out of the house kicking
Oh,
and screaming? I have three nominations
okay.
for the red flag tipping point. Number one, when playing pool and Gacy says, let's play for serious stakes. Would you just run out of the place at that point?
I
You
mean,
got to know, I'm out of here. There's no serious stakes with a grown man and pool. Number two, drives up and asks, looking for some work. And number three, when Gacy says, try these handcuffs on. He was doing that trick where he was getting out of the handcuffs, and he's like, "Oh, there's a
right.
trick. You can get out of it with the key." And then he would say, "Like, here you go. You try it. Put them on." Would you say, "Hell no, I'm getting the hell out of
All right.
there"? What's
So
your red flag
all
tipping
right.
point?
So for okay, so let me walk you through them the way you presented them. So the first one was let's play for some high stakes, high stakes pool. I
Yeah,
wouldn't
care to
run
make it
out.
interesting could be
I
added in
wouldn't
that as
run
well.
out on that offer. If there were still people in the basement, if I was still, am I alone with Gacy or am I with
Yeah,
my buddies?
yeah. You're alone. He's
Oh, if I'm alone,
putting
okay,
you in
then
the
at
in the
least
shoes of the.
I'm gonna at least hear him out. I'm gonna be like, all right, John, what are you thinking? You know? And then the
Mhm.
moment he says, if I win, you have to do a sex act on me. And if you win, I have to do a sex act on you. I'm out of the door. I'm out there. But if
Yeah.
he wants to, what if he wants to bet like 20 bucks or something? Then
Okay. Maybe.
I would be like, yeah, well, I'll go 20 bucks with you.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I would be a little freaked out, probably because his face looks really crazy when he says that, you
Yeah.
know. But I would hear him out until I hear what the offer is. So
Hmm.
so that one is very whatever the word is, dependent on what he says next.
Okay.
For the middle one, what he drives up to like the school and says, "You boys looking for some work?"
Yeah, he was driving to bus stops and he was trying to pick up runaways and stuff. And he would kind of offer them jobs. Like he would get people to work on his construction jobs and he was getting young boys and he would drive up and ask, you guys looking for some work? And then that's how he would pick them
I
up.
would I wouldn't run out. I would if he's rolling up,
You're 0
if
for
he's
2 on these.
if he's rolling up with the PDM van, and I
Mm,
see that it looks like an official van, and John Wayne Gacy has his hair like oiled and everything,
mm,
I might
very
I
oily
might
hair.
hear him out. Yeah, because he did. I read that he did run a successful business.
Yeah.
So realistically, there's no way he killed every single person who worked for PDM,
Oh, so you're
you
playing
know?
the odds. Okay.
Yeah, like think about it from the perspective of if you get a certain, yeah, exactly. You're playing the odds. Like I have a 30% chance if
Of
I'm
not
working for
getting killed.
Gacy, if I'm working for Gacy and I'm a young boy, I have probably have a 30% chance of dying and then a
Hmm.
70% chance of being freaked out, you know? And the classic like come play pool and I'll freak you out, but I won't kill you, you know? So I wouldn't run in that moment. And then I'm sure I would quickly find out he's a creepy guy and then I'd probably quit immediately. But if he rolled up with his van, I would be interested because I'm a young kid and I want to make some money, you know? And then okay. And then number three,
Number three,
see
red
if you can get
flag.
out of these
Try these
handcuffs.
handcuffs on. Would you run out of the house when John Wayne Gacy says try
What
these
is
handcuffs?
the
I
what
think that's
okay,
an
so
obvious
what
yes,
is
I
the
would run out
setup?
of.
So we're in his living room like at night, and he's asking me if I can put these handcuffs on.
Right, he's doing
That's
the
a
handcuffs trick.
no, thank you, John. No
I think
thanks.
so too.
What if he says, I know how this looks, but what
Mm,
if I put them on first and show you how to get out of them? I'll show you that you can get out of them. And
yeah.
then once I get out of them, then you put them on, and then I'll show you how you can get out of them.
That's what
What
he
if
would say. Yeah.
well, no, but
And then he
what
wouldn't
if
unlock them.
but no, but he had to have actually gotten out of them, right? Because what if he put them on and then just used the key to get out of them and then was like, here, now you do it. I would
Yeah.
be like, but you use the key, John. All right, here, let me give you mine. I wrote some up
Okay.
for you, some
All
tipping
right,
points.
give me your red flags.
Here, I got some note cards here, so I'm going to try and put them in order. So here we go. So I'm just going to give you some specific moments with this guy and just tell me if this is what makes you leave or stay, okay? You're in high school. School just ended. You're hanging out in front of the school with your friends. And Gacy rolls up in his car and says to your group, not you, but your group,
Okay.
hey boys, you all really grew up last summer. Come over here. Let me see if any of you are taller than me yet.
Hmm.
What
Has
do
a
you think?
very Dazed and Confused high school football coach vibe to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, group of friends I probably don't leave because I got strength in numbers there. So yeah, I probably don't run away instantly to that one. I'll stick around.
Okay.
I'll let my friend Jerome Sierra stand back to back to him first.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So no nothing creepy yet, right?
I'm okay
All
there.
right. Cool. All right. Sweet. Okay. So here we go. So you head on over to him. You all you all see if you're taller than John Wayne Gacy, and it turns out you're not. Okay. So you're just hanging out with Gacy by his car. Okay. What if then he says, hey, why don't you all come and check out my tiki bar? I can mix you all up some drinks and I won't tell your parents.
Mm, I think I'm out at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not social enough that I want to hang out with anybody like that. So I would say I'm out at that point. Although, you got group of friends, like if you're this is the era of
I mean,
where you can't
exactly.
drink yet, so maybe it sounds kind of
So
enticing because you could get some alcohol.
you can't drink, Patrick, and then also um say all your friends want to do it. You know,
Yeah.
they're all like,
Again,
oh
yeah, if we
yeah,
got
like let's go get
numbers,
some
then maybe
beer.
you're
Like
okay.
say there's four other guys with you. It's like, oh, let's go do it.
Right.
Let's go do
I
it.
got strength in numbers, so
Let's
I'm
go
okay
do
there.
it. Let's go do it. Yeah. So would you say you're still in?
Yeah, yeah. If I got numbers, I'm not going by myself though.
Hmm. No, you go with all of your friends. Okay.
Yeah.
So you go. So Gacy, okay. So Gacy gets you to go to his house. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's my next one. Okay. So you walk into Gacy's house and he he says, let's go to my basement. Let's all head down to my basement. That's where the pool table is, and that's where the tiki bar is. And this is a two-parter. There's two cards represented here.
Oh boy.
So as you're walking to the basement, you notice that the whole house has imagery of clowns. Okay.
Hmm.
And then as you turn around to look at Gacy, you notice that he's undone one additional button on his Hawaiian shirt.
Mm.
Okay. What do you do? Is that your
Okay.
tipping point?
I'm getting really nervous about the door behind me at this point.
Okay.
Like going down, if he says go down the basement, I'm looking at the door behind me. Like, is he going to shut the door behind? So I think that's
Yes.
my red flag tipping point where
Okay.
I'm running out of the basement at that point.
You're out of there. You're out of there.
I'm out. I'm out of
You're
there.
done. Even if all
Yeah,
your friends are still chilling and they're just like
right.
hanging out.
No, screw
Okay.
my friends. I'm running away from
That's
them.
fair. I'm okay with that. Can I tell you what I had left?
Yeah, go ahead.
I said Gacy says, "What size waist are your pants?"
Definitely out. Definitely
Um,
out on that
why
one.
don't you guys stay over tonight and we'll all get an early start in the morning.
Definitely out. Yep. I would say you
Here's
can.
here high. I just have high stakes pool alone.
Isaac, care to make it interesting?
Let's see if you can get out of these handcuffs.
Yeah,
And then
definitely out.
this is one that this isn't something Gacy would say, but this is something that would make me feel uncomfortable. Is if I was hanging out with Gacy with all of the kids, I would assume that Gacy is like a rule of thumb for hanging out with adults is that it's okay to hang out with the adults so long as the adult is somehow related to one of the kids, you know? Like
Okay.
if it's someone's dad, it's okay to hang out with them. It's Victor's dad, you know?
Hmm.
He's letting us use the pool. It's Victor's fucking dad. Like, of course he would. It's his son. But if Gacy's not anyone's dad or anyone's uncle or whatever, it's like, why are we hanging out with you?
The scary part would be, you're about 2 hours into hanging out with this stranger, and he says, "Hey, let's all go to the. You guys ever hang out at the in the desert? You want to go check out the desert?" And then at some point, you ask your friend, "Hey, so how do you know this guy?" And your friend says, "Know him? I thought you knew him." At some point,
Right.
you're in trouble at that point.
I thought he was your friend. No, no, no. None of us know him. Like, run. What a terrible time. What a creepy time for children.
Next category, most compelling quote. I originally had this as best quote. I think it's a little better if I call it most compelling because these aren't good quotes. They're just scary. They're compelling. I think it's better if I call it most compelling quote. I have three nominees. Was he insane or was he evil? Defense attorney Sam Amarante. I like being the center of attraction, but I think I earned it too. John Wayne Gacy. That's what I thought, asshole. I'll see you at the execution. Prosecutor Bill Kunkel. What do you have for best quote, or do you have a write-in nominee?
I'm gonna write in when Gacy tells his victim who he just treated to a night of terror, I was just testing you.
Mm,
I feel
that's a
like that's
creepy
the
quote.
best. I feel like that's a creepy quote, and he probably said that to so many people that he actually killed. So I'm gonna go with that one as my creepiest quote for write-in.
That one's pretty compelling and creepy. I like. Well, I like how the prosecutor gets him in the end when he says, "That's what I thought, asshole. I'll see you at the execution." But I really like the defense attorney Sam Amarante, and I thought he nailed it as far as what the trial was all about. Was this guy insane or was he evil? Were we going to put him to death? Is he crazy? So I thought that was good. Was he insane or was he evil? Is my best quote. Next category, cast it. Modern day casting. If we were to make a movie of this, I already have a thought since we're going to approach it in the sense of we can't make the killer the main character. We can't in any way glorify him. I think we should make the defense attorney the main character and talk about his struggle with defending Gacy because he says like this was horrible. I wanted to defend my client, but he sort of struggled with it. So Sam Armorente is my main character, and we can cast either John C. Riley or in a comeback role, Richard Gere. He's got the head of white hair. Maybe Richard Gere takes up this. Also, during the documentary, Sam Armorente looks like he's in the coolest bar ever while giving his interviews. He's got a glass of something he's sipping. Really cool setting. Good bar documentary on this one.
Okay, so you see them with a drink, but you never see them drink the drink, right?
Yeah, I
Don't you
think that's
wonder, is
yeah, I
that
think
like
they
it's
can't
probably
drink.
apple juice or something, right?
Yeah, or
There's
maybe they
no
can't
ice
show him
cube in it.
drinking.
Yeah, maybe they can't. It does
Okay, kind
seem
of like smoking. You can't show him
laid
smoke.
back. It seems laid back and they're
Very laid back, cool
relaxed.
bar.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts who you're gonna cast as your characters yet? Let me throw this out there because I feel like you would want him to be played at different stages in his life, maybe. So there's got to be the old version of him, and then there's got to be like the maybe
Oh,
younger
right, the
version of
young
him.
one. Yeah,
It,
we had the
depending how you
curly
want to
black
make the
hair.
movie, depending on how you want to make the movie. So
Right.
if I'm doing old version of what's his name, Sam Amarante or whatever,
Yeah, Sam
I
Amarante.
would do Michael Caine.
Oh, really?
Michael Caine,
English accent though?
I would go
How does
for
that
it.
work?
I would just Michael Caine's a good actor. I feel like he would be able to like do the good voice for it or whatever.
Okay.
And then for younger version of him, I feel like I don't know. Tom Holland's never been given the opportunity to like showcase like some range yet, you know.
Oh,
So I
interesting.
would give it to Tom Holland and just see what he could do with it as a
Okay.
young like
Give him a curly hair,
he's in his
black wig.
30s. He's in his 30s. Like as a
Hmm.
defense attorney, I feel like Tom Holland could have fun with it.
Yeah.
So that would be my approach.
Next character I had Bill Kunkel, the prosecutor. I had Eric Stonestreet from Modern Family to play him. I think he could tackle that role. I think that'd be really fun. My other main characters, I don't really have these guys as main characters, but I think it should be mentioned. Terry Sullivan and Larry Finder were the two Cook County prosecutors. Win the award for two bad wigs. Some great wigs on these two guys. I don't know if you
Yeah.
noticed it. So I gave that to Jeremy Piven. A lot of wig, a lot of
Oh,
hair experience with him. So put those two into one character. Give it to Jeremy Piven or William H. Macy. I don't know if you saw The Dropout, but they gave William H. Macy a great bald head cap in that
nice.
movie. So I gave those two guys. My other main character, Greg Badeau, the Cook County investigator. I'm going to go a different angle. Give that guy Ray Romano, investigator, kind of Ray Romano from The Irishman
Okay.
as my character. And then I wanted to have this guy in the documentary more. He wasn't in it that much. Jeffrey Ragnall was a survivor of Gacy. They just show his old pictures, and he was the guy who survived and then waited for Gacy at an overpass and then followed him home and then reported him to the cops. Like, that's the guy who assaulted me. And they busted him, but he got out on bail. So
Wow.
that guy, Jeffrey Ragnall, could be in my movie. He was the guy I gave Tom Holland to. I was like,
Oh,
that could be a good character for him. He's kind of a hero. He's like, I'm going to bust this guy who assaulted me.
like
And
that.
then finally, John Wayne Gacy, casting for John Wayne Gacy, I went with Paul Walter Hauser, who played Richard Jewell in the Richard Jewell movie. He's the only guy I could think of worth tackling this role.
Nice.
Just a fat white dude.
Dude, yeah, you're so I don't know, you named off like a bunch of people that I didn't even know, man. I gotta
Actors or
look
the
them up.
characters?
Actors, yeah,
Actors,
actors.
yeah.
I think this is a dark horse, but I think this person could do a really good job playing John Wayne Gacy. I went ahead and I gave it to Michael Pena. I think Pena,
Really?
he's gonna put
Michael
on weight.
Pena is John
Heck
Wayne
yeah,
Gacy?
John Wayne Gacy. He's gonna put on weight.
Mm.
He's been through a lot.
He's had many
Um,
mustaches in movies, so he's already got
he
that.
he has one of the best double chins in Hollywood, I think. Like when he does it right, his double
Mm.
chin really like means a lot to me. And Gacy has a notorious double chin. So I think Pena's obviously gonna have to put on weight. It's gonna be a Christian Bale
Mm.
plays Cheney role, you know. But I think the other thing Pena is gonna be interested in this juicy role for is that, he played Cesar Chavez a few years ago and it was terrible, and I think he's
Right.
trying to break out of like I'm a Hispanic, like I'm playing a Hispanic, and like I think he would benefit from playing like a straight up white serial killer. So it would give him the
Weird.
opportunity to break out of his shell a little bit if he wants, and then also I think his double chin look can like serve him well. So Michael Pena is going to be my Gacy, and then I've given him four victims that I think like could be good, like what's the word, like episodic moments in the movie where like he interacts with the victim and they have like the chance to act and like be really creative, and then he kills them and like moves on to his next victim. So my first victim for Michael Pena is going to be Gacy's first victim in 19, I think 72, Harry Styles. I'm
Oh
going
yeah, yeah.
Harry Styles is like the
Got 70s
runaway.
hair.
Yes, young, attractive, like classically like good looking like teenager. And then for victim number two, Jared Leto. I think
Oh
Jared
yeah.
Leto, I
Leto's
think
got to
Jared
be in this.
he could play a runaway so
He's a
convincingly.
runaway. Yeah.
And then he
He's
would
not
do a
too
good
old.
job. he's old, but I feel like they could tone him down a little bit. They could make him look younger, and
Mm-hmm.
then he does, like, he just looks so young too. I feel like he could do a good job. For victim number three, I'm going Timothy Chalamet.
Oh yeah,
Get him in
yeah.
there, handsome boy who would do really well. Could kind of open up Gacy. I think Timothy Chalamet like is androgynous enough that he could kind of tap into Gacy's whole like monologue about how like I'm bisexual, I'm not gay, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be really interesting. And then for victim number four, I think this one's really good. Elliot Page.
Oh, interesting.
Yes,
Yes, yes.
yes. Elliot Page plays a victim of Gacy, maybe even one that survives. You know, maybe he could be
Yeah.
the survivor victim. And
Elliot
then I
Page has
think
got to be almost like we got to make Elliot Page the hero some way of this movie.
somehow work it in there. Like
Mm-hmm.
Elliot Page goes to the papers,
Somehow.
or Elliot Page could be the son of the politician that gets Gacy arrested in the first like
Mm-hmm.
part of the movie. Something good for Elliot, you know. And then that's it. That's all I casted.
I like that. Next category, pending questions. I got three of them. Questions that I thought of after watching this documentary. Number one, did this story inspire the book It by Stephen King? I looked it up. The timeline would match, but I looked it up and Stephen King said this had no relation to John Wayne Gacy. I believe he was arrested in 1980. The book was published in 1986. So while he says no, I think you got to ask that question. The idea of a psychopath clown, did that derive the book It? He says no, though. Question number two, is this the start of the suburbs in general being a nasty, bad place? It make the suburbs look really bad. They look really isolated and dark and damp, and the houses look boring and scary. And then last question, did this ruin clowns, or were clowns always scary? I think we answered that in a previous category, the answer being yes. So did you have any pending questions after watching this documentary?
The biggest pending question I have is like, how was this guy able to rape two kids and then get caught by the police twice and then still be able to do this? It's
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous. The first one,
Police work was a little shoddy.
it's
Yes.
terrible. It's horrible police work
Mm-hmm.
because the first time he does it is with the politician's son, and he gets, what does he get? 10
He gets
years,
10 years and he serves
but
one.
he serves like 18 months, like as the
Yeah.
cook or something like that at like a reformatory. And then he gets out and then he does it again, but they just don't communicate it with the police. So like
Mm-hmm.
he gets another like 10-month period of time or something. So pending questions has to just be, it just makes you wonder how many other people were able to do this that got away with just multiple crimes during that
Yeah.
time. You know, that's terrible. So that's my big question is like, you have serial killers who do it so well, and it well from like a disgusting like the art of killing standpoint where like the police just cannot catch them. And then you have Gacy who's just like this fucking narcissistic, disgusting schlub, you know, who should have just been thrown in jail from the first moment he laid hands on that kid. And instead, through like bad police work, was just able to kind of pull it off and
Mm-hmm.
become this level of serial killer. I don't know. He's not any more reprehensible than Ted Bundy or Jeffrey Dahmer, but I just hate him more because he made so many mistakes and he was so sloppy and so gross and not even a good talker. At least Ted Bundy was a good talker. John Wayne
Mm-hmm.
Gacy's not even a good talker. He's just a bragger. So
Yeah.
he's the asshole at the bar that you just want to shut the fuck up. You know,
Yeah.
there's nothing interesting about him. When you compare him to Ted Bundy and other serial killers, John Wayne Gacy is so boring and annoying and frustrating to
Yeah.
listen
It
to.
makes you realize why his rap would only work on children, young people. Because any adult would be like, this guy's full of shit. This guy just brags
Sucks.
about himself. And the fact that he would target kids with this lame rap of him being in law enforcement or he's a business owner or he knows how to play pool or something. It's like, yeah, this is a creep. This is a total creep. John Wayne
Yeah,
Gacy. I'm glad it didn't ruin the name John Wayne, though, as far as history goes. We think John Wayne, we still think hero 1950s movie guy and not creepy serial killer.
right. Yeah, John Wayne Gacy.
Hmm.
People call him John Gacy a lot in the documentary,
That's true.
which
Yeah.
I've never heard him referred to as John Gacy. But
Hmm.
when you think about it, you don't say people's middle name. He does align with other serial killers in the sense of like he's a narcissistic actor who's
Yeah.
always
He
kind
thinks
of
he's smarter than
he's
everybody all the
putting off
time.
his persona. Yeah.
Hmm.
His persona is like the greatest thing that he has. So he uses it as a resource just to get attention. And that's something that he has in common with Ted Bundy.
Last category. This one we created. This one is called serial killer or high school coach. I have 6 scenarios for you. I want you to tell me if this is a serial killer, a high school coach, or both.
Hmm.
Number 1, serial killer or high school coach dresses odd by society standards.
That's definitely gonna go to both.
I went both as well.
Yeah, that's
John
both.
Wayne killers dress odd, high school coaches dress very odd.
Yeah.
Number 2, creepy basement.
Ooh. Okay. I'm gonna give that one to the serial killer. High
Yeah, I
school
went
coaches
serial
have cool
killer only.
basements. They got cool basements.
Yeah, yeah, they could have a cool basement.
They have sports posters and probably
Hmm.
rock and roll and like
Maybe a weight rack.
high school coaches were badass in high school, so they're the king of having badass basements.
Mm,
They've had badass basements since they were teenagers.
right.
So the basement of a high school football coach is honestly going to be pretty tight.
Oh, okay.
It's gonna have a workout area. It's gonna have some cool posters. There's gonna be like a couch. Like it's gonna be a nice zone. So
Okay,
definitely
great.
only serial killers.
Okay. Number 3, odd motivational speeches.
Definitely both.
Oh, both. I went high
Yeah.
school coach. I went serial killer. Can't really put together a thought. So I went high school coach as far as an
Yeah.
odd motivational speech. You go
I feel
both.
like I give it to both because serial killers are the kings of just gaslighting and manipulating people. And sometimes it lands, and other times I think it gets really confusing. And like in a weird way, I feel like Gacy was like giving that one victim a weird inspirational speech when he was like, yeah, I was trying to see if you would break, and you were
Right.
the only kid who didn't break, like out of all the kids I've done this to, like it kind of shocked me that you didn't break. So I wanted to try it again. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of like a weird, like he's kind of
Creepy motivational speech.
building him up a little bit,
That
so
counts.
he did it. Yeah.
That is an odd motivational speech. Number 4, talks about being in shape when clearly they are not in shape. I went
That's all high school.
I went
That's
high
all
school
high school
football coach on
Yeah.
that one.
That's a straight up high school football coach line.
Number 5, impersonates a police officer. This one is kind of tough because it could be a high school high school coach, definitely serial killer. A lot of them impersonate police officers.
It's definitely that's only serial killer. High school
Only serial
football
killer.
coaches don't impersonate police officers. That's a federal offense.
Okay, so just serial killer.
Do you
I went
think?
just
Well,
serial
what do
killer.
you mean? Like, do you mean impersonate them in the sense that they wear like the reflective Ray-Bans and stuff like that, or like,
Uh,
do they actually go up to a kid and say, "I'm a cop"? Like, because I think maybe resemble a cop is
resemble
something
a
they
cop,
definitely do. Yeah, like
have
if
a
you
fake
resemble,
badge.
but impersonate means that you go up to someone and say, like, I'm a police officer, like, come with me. I don't think high
Right.
school football coaches do that.
I don't think so, but I could see a high school football coach or a high school coach wearing a jacket that says like FDNY or something.
Sure,
Or
sure.
something PD or like a ball cap. I could see them
Yeah,
doing
no,
that. I
for
don't think they
sure.
would say I'm a police officer.
No, no. I mean, yeah, I could see them wearing like a firefighter's uniform or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. So
Yeah,
stolen
but
valor
no,
in
they
there
would. Yeah,
somewhere.
they would. No, stolen valors for sure. Something they
Yeah.
would do.
But not outwardly say I'm a cop.
Yeah.
And a last category, serial killer or high school coach won't admit that they're gay. I definitely went both on this one.
Both for sure.
I
For
went both
sure.
on this one.
Yeah, they're not going to admit it. There's no
Would
way.
never admit it.
That's the whole occupation is a failed attempt at like admitting their true self. So yeah, they're never going to say it.
Well, that is it for the categories. That was it for Murder Male, John Wayne Gacy. The tapes is on Netflix right now. Andrew Ramirez at Murder Mecca on Instagram. True crime, doc, pod, in the bank. We did it.
All right, we did it. Good times. Until the next one.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Andrew. See you soon.
See ya.
Okay, that is it. That is the show for Running It Back True Crime Edition. Andrew Ramirez, I want to thank him for joining me. As usual, Brother Andrew always brings it. Creepy, creepy episode. But that's what we do. We tackle true crime. You can find Andrew at Murder Mecca on Instagram. Hey, don't forget, if you're on the West Coast this week, May 26th, Thursday, 10 p.m. at Flappers Comedy Club, flapperscomedyclub.com is where you can see me doing live stand-up this week right here in Burbank, California. Let me know if you're coming. Been doing a lot more stand-up, and I'd love to see you there if you're in the area, of course. Thank you for listening to this episode of Running It Back True Crime Edition. More dropping this week, a couple more guests, a couple catch-up episodes as well, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you, Andrew Ramirez, for Running It Back on the Running It Back Network. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye. Okay, that is it. That is the show for Running It Back True Crime Edition. Andrew Ramirez, I want to thank him for joining me. As usual, Brother Andrew always brings it. Creepy, creepy episode. But that's what we do. We tackle true crime. You can find Andrew at Murder Mecca on Instagram. Hey, don't forget, if you're on the West Coast this week, May 26th, Thursday, 10 p.m. at Flappers Comedy Club, flapperscomedyclub.com is where you can see me doing live stand-up this week right here in Burbank, California. Let me know if you're coming. Been doing a lot more stand-up, and I'd love to see you there if you're in the area, of course. Thank you for listening to this episode of Running It Back True Crime Edition. More dropping this week, a couple more guests, a couple catch-up episodes as well, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you, Andrew Ramirez, for Running It Back on the Running It Back Network. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.